The meal I chose to make today is broccoli chicken casserole. For broccoli chicken casserole, you need 1 to 2 chicken breasts. I used one. 8 ounces of frozen broccoli. You need water, 3/4 a cup of water, 3/4 a cup of rice, 2 slices of bread, or you can use breadcrumbs. 1 can of cream of chicken soup, a 1/2 cup of mayonnaise, a 1/2 cup of sharp cheddar cheese, lemon juice, about 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice, about 1/4 teaspoon of curry powder, and that should do it. Okay, so once you have gathered all your ingredients, you are going to want to preheat your oven. So 350. Next, I went ahead and cut up my chicken breast. After cutting up the chicken, I like to skip ahead in the recipe and go ahead and take the 1/2 cup of shredded cheddar and dump that in a medium-sized bowl. Then take your 1/2 cup of mayonnaise and dump it in with the cheese. Mix it up. After the mixture is fully combined, take your 1/4 teaspoon of curry powder and dump that in there. Then add your 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice. Then stir that all up. Once that is mixed, you're going to add your can of cream of chicken soup. Stir until it's completely mixed together. Once it's completely mixed together, just set it aside. Once you've set that mixture aside, if you are using the bread slices for the topping, you can go ahead and put that in the oven to let it toast, or if you have a toaster, you can go ahead and throw it in the toaster. Once you have done that, you're going to want to go ahead and get your broccoli out of the freezer. Then you can go ahead and follow the heating instructions on the back. Now, while the broccoli is cooking, you're going to want to go ahead and take your rice. Then layer the 3/4 cup. Once you have your rice down, you can go ahead and grab your chicken and start adding that in here. Once your broccoli is done and your chicken is layered, you want to go ahead and get that out of the microwave. Then you're going to go ahead and take your broccoli and start layering it in here with the chicken. Once you have your broccoli layered, you're going to want to go ahead and add your 3/4 a cup of water. Kind of spread that around. Now you're going to grab your soup mixture that you had set aside and you're going to go ahead and throw that on top of the broccoli. Once you have the soup mixture evenly spread out, you're going to want to go ahead and take your slices of bread that you've crumbled up or your bread crumbs and just sprinkle that on top of here. And just evenly spread that out. Once you have finished with the breadcrumbs and your oven is preheated, you can go ahead and take your pan and stick it in. Then we are going to set the timer for 1 hour. Okay, so once the timer goes off, you're going to go ahead and cancel, and we can go ahead and get that out, and it should be nice golden brown. Okay, so once you have your recipe, then let's go ahead and talk about the history of it. So I researched broccoli chicken casserole and I could not find where it originated from, although I did find that the word casserole actually originated from the French word meaning saucepan. So I thought that was pretty neat to know that it actually wasn't a food and it was actually a pan that you used. Let's see, and the French word casserole has actually been derived from other words meaning ladle, and it seems to imply that these words were describing a common pot from which everyone shared. Spanish paella and British pot pies and Italian lasagnas, to name a few, seem to derive from this idea. I actually learned the recipe for broccoli chicken casserole from my mom. She used to make it for me when I was growing up, and I absolutely loved it. Casseroles were very economically friendly during the depressions of the 1890s and the 1930s, and the scarcity of food items during both world wars. In the 1950s, smaller home kitchens, the availability of lightweight oven-proof cookware, and the greater availability of canned foods like Campbell's Soup Company's cream soup line, like cream of celery, cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, etc., that made the casserole a simple and easy and cheap way to use leftovers in order to make a better dish. And Campbell's even emphasized the great casserole potential of these soups, and that contributed to the mass appeal of these dishes to the public and the explosion of the casserole dishes in the 1950s. Okay, so now let's discuss broccoli. Broccoli was actually engineered from a cabbage by an ancient Italian civilization who lived in what is now Tuscany. They were considered to be horticulture geniuses, actually. Let's see, broccoli's English name is actually derived from the word broccola, which means a flowering crest of cabbage. Broccoli is actually native to the Eastern Mediterranean and Asian Minor. Sprouting broccoli was cultivated in Italy in ancient Roman times and was introduced to England and America in the 1700s. Next is chicken, and the chickens actually descend from the wild red jungle fowl of India. And the chicken is actually perhaps the most widely domesticated fowl raised worldwide, of course, for its meat and eggs. And the chicken I used was non-organic, so it was more than likely pumped with hormones when it was being raised, which is terrible because hormones are not good for us, and yeah. Chickens are also believed to have originated from Southeast Asia, East Asia, and South Asia. Moving on to curry powder. So curry powder is widely eaten throughout Southeast Asia, but it also has roots in India. Of course, normally if you hear about curry powder, it's associated with Indian cuisines. Curry is just really a type of spice dish, usually with meat, fish, or vegetables, and a rich sauce. The mixture of spices used to make is often comes ground, so as curry powder. Okay, so next I'll talk about the sharp cheddar cheese. So sharp cheddar cheese actually originates from around the Somerset region in England. It is made from pasteurized milk, and what gives it that sharp flavor depends on how long the cheese actually sits. So typically they'll let the cheese sit between 9 to 24 months, and that gives it that good sharp cheddar flavor. Okay, so now cream of chicken. The cream of chicken soup, as far as I'm aware, is a North American food, and it is originally actually an actual soup, and you can add rice or potatoes or like your vegetables in it, but the Campbell's condensed cream of chicken just has the chicken chunks in it. Okay, so as for lemons, they are actually originally from a region in North India, North Burma, and China. Genetically, the lemons are actually a hybrid of two fruits, the sour orange and the citron. Okay, so moving on to rice. Rice is actually believed to have originated in Thailand in about 14,000 BC. And from that point on, people actually learned to grow rice in other countries such as China, India, Greece, North Africa, South Africa, and just all over the world. Okay, so next is bread, and bread is actually believed to have come from Western Asia, because that is where wheat was actually domesticated. Because, of course, bread does not come from a tree, or it does not grow in the ground. It comes from wheat and is actually made. Okay, so as for mayonnaise, no one really knows exactly where it originated from. It is actually believed to have either been created in the mid-1700s by a French chef, or it is believed to have come from Spain, where it's called salsa mahonesa. Although, either way, the French is who made the item popular. Making this video and cooking this food and having to do all this research makes me want to reference the article we had to read, Where Am I Eating? And it makes me think of that because all this food, we don't think about where this food comes from. We just know that we get it at Walmart and that's all we need to know. But really, we need to know where we are buying from, who we are supporting ultimately, and we need to keep in mind the cultures we are getting them from. This also made me want to reference class in relation to food, because class has everything to do with what we eat. Money determines the food we can buy, of course. So if you have plenty of food, you can go out and buy steaks and eat those. If you have no money, you're gonna want to go out and buy things that are more filling, such as rice, beans, things like that. So your social class has everything to do with how you eat or what you eat. So I think that is a perfect example of how food relates to culture.